All right, let's dive into one of the most incredible stories of the 20th century, the Great Depression. This is a truly epic story about a spectacular fall, a tough, gritty struggle, and in the end, a remarkable rise. Let's get right into it.
Just think about that for a second. This one sentence really gets to the heart of it all. This wasn't just some abstract economic event, you know? It was a deeply personal crisis that hit millions of regular folks, taking away literally everything they had.
So, to really get how big of a shock this was, you have to know what came right before it. The Roaring Twenties. It was this incredible time of optimism and prosperity. Everybody, it seemed, was getting into the stock market, a lot of them with borrowed money, because everyone thought that good times would just roll on forever. Of course, that idea was about to be completely shattered.
And that brings us to our first part, the Great Crash. This was the trigger, the single event that really lit the fuse on this whole thing. It wasn't just a bad day on Wall Street. It was a shockwave that rattled the entire world.
You know, what's so wild is just how fast it all happened. The market had been soaring, right? But then, on October 24th, the panic started. People started selling like crazy. And just 5 days later, bam, Black Tuesday. The entire market just collapsed. All that value that people thought they had, it just vanished.
And this is where you see the domino effect in action. The crash wasn't some isolated thing. As soon as it happened, people panicked and ran to the banks to get their savings out, which caused the banks to fail. And with no banks, businesses couldn't get loans, so they had to shut down. Just like that, families saw their life savings disappear overnight. Total disaster.
Okay, so let's shift gears from the big financial picture to what life was actually like for people on the ground. This is where you see the real human cost of the Great Depression, and believe me, it was brutal.
A whole new language of suffering popped up. Take Hoovervilles, for instance. These were these huge, sprawling shanty towns that people built out of scrap metal, boxes, whatever they could find. They named them after President Hoover, which tells you exactly who the public blamed for the mess. It was a really powerful, visible sign of just how bad things had gotten.
For so many, being hungry was just a constant part of life. The whole day could be spent just trying to find something to eat. You've probably seen the photos, these incredibly long lines of people, just waiting for hours, hoping for a single piece of bread or a bowl of soup. It's just a heartbreaking image from that time.
And if you were a farmer, you got hit with a double whammy. On top of the economy crashing, a massive drought hit the Great Plains. We call it the Dust Bowl. It basically turned farms into deserts, forcing thousands of families, nicknamed the Okies, to pack up whatever they could carry and head west, desperate to find any kind of work.
So you have to ask yourself, where do you even go from here? With the economy in ruins and people losing all hope, how does an entire country possibly begin to pull itself back up? It's a huge question, and it marks a major turning point in our story.
Well, the answer came from a brand new president, Franklin D. Roosevelt, who came in with a bold, ambitious plan he called the New Deal. And this was a really big deal because it was going to completely change the government's role in people's lives forever.
The New Deal wasn't just one thing. It was a three-part strategy. Think of it as an all-out attack on the crisis. Step 1, relief. Get immediate help to people who are starving and homeless. Step 2, recovery. Work on getting the whole economy running again. And step 3, reform. Fix the system so that a crash like this could never, ever happen again.
And look, this wasn't just talk. We're talking about massive government projects. They put millions of people back to work building roads, bridges, and schools that we still use today. They even created jobs for artists and writers because Roosevelt knew that you need to feed the soul too. And most importantly, they created Social Security, a safety net that has protected generations of Americans.
But as huge as all those government programs were, that's not the full picture. Not even close. The real secret to survival, the real backbone, was found in everyday people in communities just helping each other get by.
This really shows you the two sides of the coin. On one side, you've got these huge, official government programs. But on the other, you have the small, personal acts of kindness. Neighbors sharing the little food they had. Friends helping each other find a job. Families just refusing to give up. Both were absolutely essential.
So as the 1930s went on, the country started this long, slow climb back. It was a time of recovery for sure, but it was also a time for some serious reflection on what everyone had just been through.
Now you can see here, this wasn't an overnight fix. Unemployment was at its absolute worst around 1933, and even by the end of the decade, it was still pretty high. But you can see the trend, right? Things were moving in the right direction. Slowly, painfully, but they were getting better. Hope was making a comeback.
And that really gets us back to the core of this whole story. Yes, the Great Depression was about economic collapse and incredible suffering, but you absolutely cannot tell that story without also talking about the amazing courage and the unbreakable hope that ordinary people showed every single day.
I think if there's one big lesson from this whole period, it's that nothing is guaranteed. Life can change in an instant. The Depression taught the world that being prepared, leaning on your community, and just having that resilience to keep going, that's what gets you through the darkest times. So, I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. This story shows us strength coming from two places, from huge, sweeping government action and from the small, quiet kindness of a neighbor. It really makes you think, doesn't it? When things get tough in our own lives, where does our true strength really come from?